Here at the NASCAR Hall of Fame, and I'm with Ricky Rudd, who's a NASCAR Hall of Fame inductee, who's going to be going in the Hall of Fame here in a couple of days. And Ricky, when you walk around this place and look at all this stuff they have in the Hall of Fame and think about these drivers that are Hall of Fame drivers, what goes through your mind?
Well, first of all, it just seems kind of a shock. I'm going to be in here with all the heroes when I was a kid. You can't help but to walk around and see, the petty cars, and I'm looking at right now. I see 21 car with a famous car from Glenwood used to drive. It's just amazing. You feel like you're right back in that period of time. But just a tremendous honor to be included in this group.
When you were growing up and were sort of following along to NASCAR and getting your early racing days under you, what was the vision you had in your mind of what NASCAR was, and as you started seeing it on TV and all of that before you really got into it?
It's kind of strange. I tell people, and they question me when I tell them this, but I was busy. I was a go-kart racer, motorcycle racer in high school, and even elementary school in the go-karts. So I was so caught up in my own racing, and my heroes were within my sport I'm trying to compete in. Mm-hmm. And I sort of got out of that within a 1 week period. I'm pulled out of that sort of small environment, and I'm plugged into a Rockingham, North Carolina race, a cup race with Pearson, Allison, Yarborough, all those guys, and what a shock, really. What am I doing here? And but I learned a lot. My way of coming into the sport was probably unlike anybody else's, because you could not do that today. And the way I got started was sort of on-the-job training, and I learned from the best. And it took me a while to figure it out, drive the cars, but also you got to learn how to win. And it took me a while, but once I learned it, I kind of got the niche. I knew how to do it.
I've always thought it is interesting to look back at how different drivers got in the sport, from the way Richard Petty joined in when his dad didn't even let him drive a race car until he was 21 some odd years old, and he was just kind of right in it. And that was the early days, and then your deal coming in, and now kids, start little go-karts to quarter midgets at 3 or 4 years old.
I say I'm more that way. I mean, that's what I came up to, is that same route. But in 1975, that didn't exist. So you didn't have a 18-year-old guy, I call it a kid at the time, racing 38-year-old people. It didn't exist in that era. So it's kind of like sort of a fish out of water. NASCAR didn't really know what to do with you. The big difference is these kids now, they're probably ready to drive a cup car at 13. And I think eventually, if the laws would permit that, there's kids around this country at 13 years old that could get out there and wheel these cars. I'm convinced of that.
That would be crazy to see. I think we do see some young kids at some of these late model races, and they do pretty well when they're like that. When you look back at your career, what are the few defining moments that stick out in your mind that makes you a Hall of Famer?
I'm not really sure. My childhood was probably a little different than most kids. I was the kid that I was in the hospital. Probably it seemed like I averaged about one trip a month. Getting stitched up or getting an arm put back together. I was just kind of no formal things I did. It was like jumping off the roof of houses, putting a cape on, trying to be like Superman. And if kids could jump off the lower roof, I had to show you could go all the way up like 15 foot higher. I could jump from that roof and make it. Sometimes it didn't always work out too good. But that was that sort of daredevil type spirit. It was kind of, I guess it was born in me, I guess. But that didn't make you a good race car driver. Now you got to learn how to, I got to get a skill and try to figure out how to make it work. And that's what the go-karts and the motorcycle racing did for me at an early age. And I needed that. I think I needed that structure. And same with cup racing. I was very structured, and I was probably one that if you didn't have that structure, I'd probably be in jail or something right now. Who knows? I like the adventure.
A couple of the many stories we could probably get from Ricky Rudd if we stood here and talked all day. I think everybody remembers the big flip at Daytona back when he was in the Wrangler car, one tough customer, right? And then, the 1994 race at Martinsville where he got out of the car and he was wore out. It was so hot. All kinds of stories from these drivers. Ricky Rudd, congratulations on going in the Hall of Fame. And
thanks,
looking forward to see you inducted, and hope you're doing well these days.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right.